So why don't we talk about solo piping now? Successful in solo competition throughout the 1980s and the 90s for sure, but wasn't until relatively a later age that things really took off, um, on the world's biggest stages at a relatively later age for most solo pipers. And you're doing great stuff before, but really went to a whole different level in the 2000s, I
Hmm.
think, for the most part. You know what happened?
If I really knew that, I'd have been doing it in the 80s. Um, I think about that actually often. I mean, I've been luckier than a lot. One, to have a long career, and two, to still be able to play, and it's still going good. And I look at what went good in the 80s and stuff. Um, I don't think my life was busier then that it prevented me stuff. I honestly think that I maybe took for granted what I could play, what I could do, and I was maybe just not quite there. And then I started to get having an injury in 1990, like when I had to just kind of drop it for 4 years. That kind of got me waking up to how to make it be right, and it was a lot of listening to good players, and instead of complaining about a result, wondering how the person who won got that result. Instead of saying, they did that and they did that, I can't believe that. There had to be a reason they somehow put that ahead. So I started to look at that stuff. Between that and probably a bit of maturity in age and playing and just gaining and understanding. Like in light music, I obviously had better hands when I was younger than I do now. It's just a factor of age. I mean, it's hard work to keep those things going now for the light music. But in the Piobaireachd, I think as much as I was taking it in and learning tunes, I just didn't get really inside of what I was doing. I was always just playing. I was playing tunes. But I know now when I'm playing a tune, I'm kind of really inside the whole piece, playing it out when the pipe's right and I'm feeling good. Like there's a different thing happening when I'm playing Piobaireachd as when I was younger and just blowing through it, and maybe phrasing it sort of right and not missing anything. I'm not sure. I wish I'd figured it out a little earlier, but
So you were never one to have really well connected teachers. You look at it now to be able to rise above, and how important do you think it is to have a teacher who can vouch for you and sort of maybe give you credibility or authority? Um, you see your own
yeah,
students going to you
yeah,
probably for that. And
yeah. I Well, yeah, I guess I mean, depends on what you look at as credibility. I grew up with Jamie Troy. It was great credibility. I had a lot of time with Bob Hardy and Andy Wright and Summers. So I've had lots of good tuition, but I think I know where you're coming from. That I wasn't, I didn't see Donald McLeod for 16 years straight kind of thing. Um, I did spend 15 years with Bill Livingston. It's pretty good. But to answer your question, yeah, a lot of people have said, "Where did you get all your Piobaireachd from?" And it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Um, like I say, Jamie gave me the grounding of the Piobaireachd stuff, so that I knew how to approach it, how to make it, how to do it right. Bill got me from, age 19 to 35, where I was ripe for learning musically tunes, and getting some out of it. And then I had a few years off, and then I got involved with Jimmy McIntosh, who knew how to take what I had and make me understand how to make it better. And that's a hard thing to really just sort of say in a blanket sentence, but he knew the small things and could make it just that much better. And again, I compare all the things when I'm analyzing stuff. But when I was talking with Alex about some of the great things that I've heard, you hear people play some days, and the tempo and the instrument and the tune selection and the mood that they bring out, it's just all of a sudden it makes that performance special. Alistair Gillis was somehow a genius at that. Like, he just cranked them out. Every time you heard him, you thought, I just can't hear anything better. And he would keep doing it. There's Piobaireachd players that have done that. Bill Livingston did that several times in Ontario on a boring Saturday morning. He played music that we'd be going, holy moly, what is that? How did, okay, I'll go play against that now. Good luck. So you start to learn as you go, and you realize from listening and your mistakes. I think it just took me longer to realize it. Mm-hmm. I look at young guys now like Callum Beaumont, for instance, and think, I've heard him play some really, really great tunes that are way better than his age should reasonably do. You could have a super slick tune on a great pipe flawlessly played, but there's stuff that he has an ability to do at a young age that is just not there in a normal Piobaireachd player, mm-hmm. I think. So it just took me a while to, and some major stepping stones along the way that have made me think about things mm-hmm. in different ways and how to produce what it needs to be.
So what about fundamentally? Which do you like better, Piobaireachd or light music?
Well, that's really tough. I think for a lot of years I would have said light music, but Piobaireachd, because there's so much depth in it, and if I can maintain a certain amount of technique, I have so much more experimentation I can do within the tune that I can really, even on my own practice, I feel like I can change the way I play a tune in my room one way to another, and really read a different story out of it. Whereas light music, I don't have that ability, and it's harder work to manage just in the hands to play as good as I want to do. And well, with light music you can play it different ways too, depending on what we talked about with the way we treat the beats and stuff. But I think now, because of the vast amount of it, I would say Piobaireachd, because it not only it puts me in a relaxed state, I can think about stuff, and it's super deep, where I'd hate to make it sound like it's one-upping sitting and listening to the former winner's MSR at Inverness, which is just an absolute phenomenally riveting kind of event too. It's a different thing. Mm-hmm. So
okay,
I try to keep the light music up to the standard that I expect, and I expect the Piobaireachd to still keep getting better. Mm-hmm. Put it that way. So I think I like Piobaireachd because I'm not done learning it yet. Whereas light music, we all hit a curve, and fatigue and hands and everything start us on the way down, whether we're playing pipes or we're a golfer or an athlete, and you have to try and maintain that plateau. Whereas I honestly don't feel, as long as I can keep blowing a set of pipes and get better and better all the time at managing the quality of sound, so if I have to make it a little easier, I can still do it. I could still play way better Piobaireachds 10 years from now than I can now, because you just keep getting better at it.
Mm-hmm. So on the note of Piobaireachd, the gold medals, do you think there's too much emphasis placed on winning, being first, and winning one of the Highland Society of London gold medals, to giving pipers kind of credibility, a stamp of approval, going on to be great, where some people never might capture it? And still, I don't know. What are your thoughts around that?
I think that's a twofold. On the one hand, I think there has to be a tremendous amount of importance to put on that, because it's the pinnacle of the absolute performance on a day with everything under there. Having said that, those who are very, very good players who either can't manage competition mentally or financially, for whatever reason, just haven't won that particular award, should never be put out. And it's up to the people who have won those awards or are in the know and judges to make sure that the other people that haven't won these major awards but could very well have done that on any day are recognized near as much, because their ability to pass maybe it's a different thing. Are you the great competitor and player of this music, or are you the great person for passing it on? It's kind of a twofold thing, you know. You don't have to win the gold medal to be, you know, Jimmy McIntosh didn't win a lot of clasps, if any. I don't want to quote that, but he's an awfully good teacher at getting them out.
Andrew Wright never won a class.
Yeah, he won an Open, Piobaireachd Open, and his stable of students is just probably unmatched, really, over the last 30 years. Great players. Some people that are great players, I would bet, couldn't teach, period. So, does it make you brilliant because you won the gold medal? No, it means that on that day you did something remarkable. How you use that is where it really boils down. I got told that when I first got into Open, and it was from my great close friend Jack Lee, as I broke in and proceeded to get hammered by him weekly. You know, he said one time, nobody cares if you win the Strasbourg Reel at Vancouver, and nobody cares if you win the March at Portland. They care if you get a second, a third, and a fourth all on the same day, and you're in there constantly being consistent and letting people know that you're a piper, not just a one-time winner. That's going to get people's respect. They're going to want to know, and they want to come to you for advice and for help. And it's something I always remembered. Nothing to, of course, you want to be winning first. As well, you've interviewed Jack. You know Jack. He's going to win. But his point was that doing one little thing, play good in everything, and get the respect of people. And hopefully, if that means a gold medal, great. But you know, we don't need to name names. There's just a bucket load of people on both sides of the scale. I think it's important because it keeps a reference point at how good has to be, so that even those who are there or around or close are close enough that, you know, great golfers that didn't win the Masters, you know, doesn't mean they're not a great golfer.
So what about, you know, you're looking at your career, and it is a career in piping, because it's your profession, it's what you do for a living. You know, would you be able to sustain the career without the competition success? Would you, and given, you know, even if you're exactly the same piper as you are today?
I don't think so, because I don't think the marketing and the press is good enough for that.
So it's getting your name out there.
Getting your name out there is what does it, and it doesn't. Like I said, you win a gold medal, it doesn't make you a good teacher, but it does assume you have the knowledge enough to pass a tune to someone, whether you do it in a good way or. Good teacher's about a good teacher. It's not about the English book or the math book or the Kilbury book they're teaching out of. It assumes you have the knowledge to do it. You know, so I think that it sets that standard, and it gets your name out so people see. Same as recitals to crowded places. And I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed playing in Las Vegas a couple of weeks ago, because almost every one of the soloists that were there came out to see me. And I made a point of standing around, and I was really quite moved by people that wanted to just hear a tune and say, thanks very much, that really made my day. It's like, that's a whole lot better than first place. You know, you're doing something.
So it just occurs to me, more pipers are making a living out of it, probably than any time. You're teaching, recitals, the rest of it, and they're competing longer. Older pipers, like you're at one time you would have been kind of unusual for your age at 54, whatever you are.
Two, come on.
52. 52.
52.
Oh, okay. So they're competing longer to keep their brand out there. Is that part of what's going on today? Do you find that you have to keep going, keep at it?
I think you need to try to keep going to keep at it. I don't think we're doing it to keep our brand out. I'm not competing to keep my brand out there. I compete because I love the test match that I face. If we had enough knowledgeable people, interested people, where we could do a recital tours, 7 or 8 a year, and we had it set that we had certain qualifications, like meaning you can't play the same recital all year round, that would probably be just as good. We just don't have that. So we have these competitions because and that forces me to get in as good a shape as I possibly can, to perform as good as I can, because in the end, I'm eager to see how I made out, and I forget about it in 10 minutes. I really don't care. It's like next event, but I'm so much more happy with the fact that I've gained enough knowledge I can pass this on and show someone how to do it, and when they do it, then I feel really good. And that just happened. I did an amazing experience this last week with a student who has tried for 7 years and an adult, and they've wanted to just think, I can't do this, I'm going to give up, and why I keep making a mess of it all the time. And I'm as much a therapist as a piping coach, and this person I know has had like really good hands and they can manage it, you know. And this was a grade 4 event, a first, second, and third finally. The first time they've ever got a first, the only time they've ever had more than 2 prizes, a first, second, and third, crying their eyes out. With thanks and a note. I'm like, okay, that's a whole lot better than me winning some event somewhere else. And that stuck with me in a letter I wrote to someone else. And it's like, it just means way more. But part of the stuff I was teaching her about getting on the boards and managing to do this and forgetting about this and thinking about that came from me doing that and or suffering from it from some time. And it's hypocritical. If you know, like, you guys need to be out there competing and try and do it. Yeah, but I don't do it anymore. I don't have to. You know, if I'm able to do it, then I do it. I mean, I don't have to do it as often, but I should be out there once in a while. And it just gives me a reason to keep going. You know, in that never-ending bit of analogies, I don't want to go and just hit balls in a driving range all the time. Even if I think I'm really hitting everything good, I got to get out in the course and just see.
Right.
Plus, I love to play golf, but I would have to go out to test to see am I getting anywhere or not. And you know, instead of in my living room in the practice range, I need to go out in front of the people and play. And the endorphin rush when things are going good, I have not even come close to losing any of that yet. So I don't like to practice. I really don't. I don't mind saying that. It's like, let's just work. 3/4 through the practice when the pipes are going and my focus is on and I'm not thinking about chores that need to be done or letters to write or banking or whatever your day-to-day life is, and I'm highly involved in the instrument sound and the tune I'm playing, then I'm playing. And I don't call that practicing. That's just good rehearsal, and I enjoy that. But the whole blowing in reeds and all that stuff, geez, I have no time for that. And I'm impatient. It's just part of the job.
It's part of the job. It's a job.
Yeah, it's part of the job. You have to, if you want to do that, you have to do this.
Yeah.
You want to run the half marathon or something, you can't decide and do it next Monday. You got to train a bit, and it's going to hurt. But the feeling you get from doing it is great. It's a sense of accomplishment. It's a sense of creating good music that's there forever. And if you're there, for me now, because it's really not selfish anymore. It's more about inspiring people, which in the end is selfish because then they want to know more from you, and that helps the brand and keeps you going, which is part of everyone's job, is to make the next person happy in their job.
Let's talk more about teaching and talk about the future. Your career as a piper, literally a career. So do you enjoy teaching?
I love teaching. Absolutely love it. I'd be dishonest if I didn't say you have days where you're so busy or someone's not putting in the effort. And I think I just hit it right. When they're not putting in the effort or don't seem interested, I don't love it so much, Dan. I feel like, why are you doing this? Is it a bad week? And I cancel people for that reason. But anyone, and I teach quite a few adult people in their 60s, playing fire department bands and stuff, and they get a little better each time, and that's hugely rewarding, and they're happy as can be. I love that. I also love it because they're in public, and if I can help to make them not sound like what we talk about in public piping, if I can make them a step better, even just through verbally letting them know that they have to be at a certain standard, to tell them, you know what, don't bother with the middle drone today if you're not quite happy with your tuning. Put 2 on, make it sound pretty good, nobody's going to know, and that's going to be nice. Versus, wah, wah, wah. If I can teach that and it helps, that's good for piping. But they come and they're ready to learn, and I help them. It's good. My phone is ready, and my students know if they're competing, they're supposed to text me, and I want to know the goods. I'm excited to hear how they did, and why they did good, how they felt when they did it, and what went wrong. I don't want to wait a week to find out what went wrong. I want to know now, what do you think went wrong today, if something went wrong, or did you just get beat?
Right.
It's great.
So we talked earlier about playing on the beat and working with the beat. What about some of your more successful teaching methods? What do you find is working for you as a teacher to get the best out of your students?
I do 2 things probably, several things, but 2 things in lumps. One would be the whole playing with control. All my students will work on different aspects of that at any time that we find said issue in a tune, whether it's raw timing of a tune or a rhythm of a strass bay or an embellishment not being right or too big, too early, too soon. We'll take part of the control package out and work on it. The other thing that I find with so many people, and it's a product of the problem with piping, is that because it's always been rated, everyone knows what's wrong with their playing or why something's wrong. And so we put in this thing, and this came from, I'll bring it around because it really made me think about it. When I used to work as a carpenter, we did a job one time, and it was an old house, 46 doors, and there's some big old mansion. And it was all settled, and the doors and the trim, much like your house here, had to stay. But these new doors were put in. And being the carpenter, I was in charge of doing all these doors. And I remember saying to Ronnie Rollo, one day, you want me to do 6 or 8 doors a day. I don't know how I'm supposed to do them. None of them are square. They're not plumb. Everything's out of whack, And his line was, listen, nobody complained about a door that works. And it's one of the things that has stuck with me forever, meaning that it might not be right, but find out what's wrong and make it right. So it's a teaching method I developed, but I call it, with all the students, we call it the 180 factor. And it just means everything they say at every lesson that's not 100%, I say, okay, you need to write this down. And then we have a line down the middle of the page. It has the 180-degree solution, meaning what's the exact opposite? I couldn't play because it was too cold. Well, next time you're going to make sure you wear your mittens and warm up, something as simple as that. So even in their playing, we look at what's the issue. Are we going too fast? How are we going to slow down? How are we going to measure that? So everything has here's the problem or the issue. I don't let them say a problem anymore either. I say, you need to tell me what the issue is. And then we deal with it and we flip it 180 degrees and say, here's how we can make it right. Why does this not sound like, you're talking about your bagpipe. Okay, why does it not sound like Roddy McLeod's, who's my go-to guy? And probably 3/4 of the world's if they were smart. But, well, it's this, it's that. So, okay, well, let's take it one step at a time. And it's been instead of saying, this is wrong, you're not doing it right, it's getting the person almost in a master classy type of situation to analyze it with you, to figure it out. Okay, this is what's actually wrong here. Now, if we were to make it better, how could we do that? And it's been really successful.
So what about the employer? Sort of enabled you to make a life in Halifax, the Citadel. A lot of people they see this the 78th Highlanders Halifax Citadel. And don't realize what the Citadel is all about. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
The Citadel is a living history museum, and it's centered around the time 1869 to 1871, when the pipe band was there. Ranald Mackenzie was the pipe major, gold medalist. And that's why the band currently wears Mackenzie tartan, the Seaforth unit, and it was home of the Ross Buffs and stuff at that time. So it's a reenactment of that period. When they decided to open it for real several years ago, part of it, apart from having infantrymen and having people in costumes, was that they needed pipers. And so they were able to get some from the Dartmouth group and the local bands and stuff. And the Halifax pipe band was going at that time, but Halifax Police, and trying to build. And so they thought we should start some kind of a school there. And Rod McLean was curator of the museum, the Army Museum there, which is part of the whole exhibit. And he was helping with the teaching, but his job was too big. And the opportunity came, and he called and said, we'd like to have you in the band. You've said you're going to come and play in the band anyway. Living out in the East Coast, maybe we'd like to offer you a job to be the instructor. Make sure these people get taught during the summer. And then we started a program of having a small summer camp, it's always been a struggle to get people to start, and it is in many areas. And the September program, which is like local bands start up with the kids in September. The Citadel's been hugely supportive for me as a professional. They've given me a job. They support my competing at the major events, and they try to market it when they can. And the Citadel's actually, the Regimental Association sponsors in part the senior band, which a lot of these kids that started off in our Friday night classes, which are now a Tuesday night, they all get up to be grade 3 type players, for instance, when they're 14, 15, 16, they're 3s or 2s or 1 level, and they apply and they get summer jobs. So the whole circle is that we teach these kids from the beginning, and if they're good kids, and most of them are nice kids, and they learn well, and we have a summer job for them because we need a pipe band on parade that's dressed in the reenactment outfit, the Seaforth uniform, and they play. There's a duty piper playing all day long. Spells off. There's a concert usually in the morning, one definitely at lunch, and in the busier season, one in the afternoon. So their job in the summer is being a piper and or a drummer, and they get some extra help from me. In turn, they all get better. They get better in a hurry their first year there because the amount of physical piping they have to do is like boot camp of piping. There's a lot of playing up and down the roads, marching around in the parade, hot. It's rough, but it's just like a piper in the Army. But you have people that, for instance, are just starting to come towards the grade 1 band, and they're getting there. And a couple months later, you're going, you know what, man, they're almost there now. It's just huge because the amount of physical playing they've done. The hands are better. Things are tighter. So
Interesting.
And then some of those top players that have made the band that I started out on, they're helping me now with the brand new kids. So it's a great cycle.
System.
Yep, we just need more. We just need more kids to be interested in starting to play, and it's really hard to get that. We haven't figured out that secret marketing weapon yet on how to get more kids to start.
So what about you worked for a while for quite a few years as construction, working with Ron Rollo, and now you've worked a long time as a professional piper and teaching. Which do you think is harder? Is it hard to make a living as a piping instructor today? Is it easier? Is it harder to be a construction worker? All these things.
Depending on your ability and your connections as a construction worker and your neighborhood you live in and the situation and economy, you can go great as a construction worker, or it can be tough. For instance, right now it might be tough. Well, I know it's tough in Halifax, partly because there's not enough actual carpentry building. There's major buildings being built, but carpentry building, not a lot of that. And the extremely long winter takes that season down, where some of those people who are qualified, say the same skill level, can maybe do fantastic out west. As a piper, the ability to make a living full time is much better now. And there's a couple of reasons. The internet has created a huge opportunity for people to learn. The world is a smaller place to travel in. We all know that, even though geographically it's still the same size. It just connections. Everything is slower, quicker. More people that have some money, and I'm referring to basically adults, want to learn to play pipes, but they don't have 9-to-5 jobs anymore. They have 7 till 7 jobs. And so to take 3.5, 4 hours out to get their hour lesson is impossible. But to finally get home, have a quick snack, grab a coffee or a beer or whatever they like, and come on downstairs to the computer and see me, and even more so in the last couple of years, because a lot of people have nice cameras and they have nice microphones, and I can help people tune their pipes over my screen at home, because I can hear good enough now with quality recording. I can point to the drone and say, up, and teach them how to tune and everything. So the availability is there. They're both hard. You have to market, you have to push. I wish I had a full-time job in a nice private school like a tenured music teacher might have at any place, but I don't. So I've been doing both as a private contractor per se, and that's hard work, no matter construction, financial, music, sports coach.
Did you ever think when you were a kid, you ever dream that you would be teaching piping for a living?
No.
Being a piper?
No, because I didn't know anyone that did it except for John McClellan and Archie Cairns were sort of the only names I knew and they were Army. And I just was something that didn't interest me. Army, and there was no such thing at the time. We didn't have a computer, we didn't have anything. So I didn't know anyone in Scotland that did it. I knew people that taught, but they all had jobs. And
it's kind of interesting that when you were at the College of Piping in Summerside with Scott McCauley, I think Scott was one of the first people to recognize the internet and e-learning and getting a program off the ground. I think he was. I'm not sure if you were.
I was involved with that with him, and it was only through. It was through internet and sort of as Facebook messaging, and not Facebook, but it was MSN messaging and stuff. I'm not a tech. Then all of a sudden video pictures started to come along, and it was really, it was as raw as the television was those first times. It was broken up and spattered and but we started to think pretty quick, we should be able to at least talk with these people, or we should be able to set a camera up and let them hear a lecture we're giving. you know, and it could be a marketing thing. We could maybe do something. And it was only when I remember getting a new cable connection shortly after someone contacted me, and geez, that had to be, I couldn't tell you now, 14 years ago? Well, quite a long time, 13, 14 years ago. Someone contacted me and wanted to play a tune, and it was broken up, but I thought, you know what, I'm able to help here. You know, and so I did. It was like, you can't make it to see me. They just wanted some advice. And at that time, it was just kind of a lark. You're seeing someone, and I mostly thought, this is really cool, because if I can set this up, I can talk to Troy, I can talk to my mom in Victoria. I certainly can't fly 5,000 miles all the time. But it was also, and I thought, wow, I wonder if this thing's going to get better. And then I got to a couple of places. Another student that I knew worked for a tech company. He said, you know, the speed was up. This stuff would go. And then everybody started getting onto that anyway. But the first years of Skype they were pretty rough. We had a lot of knocked out calls. We had a lot of, can you do that again? Sorry. Or it was like the tape got wound, the old cassette tape, and it was like, okay, well, we got to do it again. And things got better and better. So it's been terrific because it's helped.
So what about, you know, you have to talk a little bit about health issues along the way. You know, you've had some challenges, I think, an arrhythmia condition, which is quite common, but you know, things that have kind of been hiccups in your career, and you've worked through them, and you're as healthy as ever.
Kind of had to, for one thing. And, you know, I mean, on the one hand, I'm healthy as ever, and the other hand, I have to be cautious of it all the time. You know, I see a therapist every 2 weeks, and I have practically for over 10 years, just to try and keep my hips and my back moving, because I had an accident 25 years ago, falling down a set of steps, but being young and strong and healthy and building houses, didn't think anything was it, because it was a Charlie horse in my leg. Had no idea or any knowledge that I really, really flattened 3 discs in my back and 2 up in my neck. And, you know, so it's been a bad injury ever since. But what did they call it? Bulging disc syndrome or something. Doesn't matter what it is, it hurts. And got through a bit of that, but that caused, and it still causes, a lot of the major neck pain. And I've worked with different pipe bags, and I've worked with different contraptions all the time to try and take the stress off my left side and my neck to help my left hand. You know, I bought a new set of pipes 3 years ago that were ivory, which broke my heart to not play the silver pipes, because they've been beautiful and done well. But the weight was hard, you know, so I bought that. I actually went to one of these blow sticks that I vowed I would never use, just because I still think they look silly, but, you know, I don't have this happening at all, no matter how well I tied it in. And I played it and did 3 competitions, and my left hand felt better. So it's all helping to aid my posture and my back. And I can't go running. I hate the fact that I'm not allowed to run, because I do it for 2 days, and I can't walk. After that, it's just the back pain and stuff is just horrible. So I'm on elliptical and stuff like that, and trying to do yoga sometimes. And
so what do you think pushes you on? I mean, like, a lot of people would have quit, like, maybe 25 years ago when
you know what, it may sound, I'll tell you what pushes me on, and it may sound odd. Just 2 things. One, I love what I do. I love when the pipes sound good and you're playing good, especially if there's people there to hear you, and it's really nice. It's like, this is delivering something that they're going to get to go home and remember. But my dad passed when I was 14. I've got brothers who have had some health issues, and they're just retiring now. And I'm like, I want to play golf. I want to enjoy my life and be one of those snowbird dudes that plays golf during the day and teaches piping and lives on. You know, a few sort of older people have been really inspiring in my life, that they just plug on, and they're healthy because they stay connected, they stay sharp. And that's, if I stopped piping, I'd get lazy, and if I get lazy, I'd have back problems. I'd just end up probably being crippled before long.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd run into more problems with the atrial fibrillation. I mean, that's been stopped for 7 years now. I mean, I had 10 years of it, and it was murder. I couldn't play a lot of times, and it was awful for playing and frightening because it was actually so new at the time that, I mean, it wasn't new, but it was only new in treatment
Mm-hmm.
at the time. 3 operations it took to figure out how to stop the thing finally, and it's been hanging in there so far. My heart's good. It should take me to be 110 years old. But when that stuff was going on, I mean, you were around, it was a mess. I could play for a while, and then I'd be white as a ghost and couldn't breathe. And it's like that moment you step off a 25, 30-minute treadmill run, those first 3 breaths where you're... But that went on for the next 7 hours. So, I kind of look at it and go, I got dealt a pretty good card there. I got dealt an unlucky one, but, they fixed it.
Mm-hmm.
I got a lot of friends who haven't made it, and we look at other people that we both know, a few people who are going through tremendous problem right now. And I look at my own kid Fraser, he wasn't supposed to make it, for God's sakes, and he's 22 and vibrant and all that stuff. And I'm like, as much as I complain about the aches and pains, I just go down and give myself a slap in the chops sometimes and go, maybe you'll get to play a game of golf next month, and a lot of people aren't going to get that chance. So shut up and suck it up. It could be a lot worse.
So given all that, what's next for Bruce Gandy?
More tunes, competing as long as I can. Finally winning a Glenfiddich. I think if that would happen, I would really consider maybe hanging it up. Just because it just seems like, I know I can break par kind of thing. I know I can do it. Why I haven't, it's my own thing. But more music, more discovery of music. I'm playing at the Donald McDonald next month, which I've never done. I'm really excited about it because it's forcing me to think a different way about the music now, using what I have. Teaching, I'd like to use, I don't care about my results, but I'd like to be able to brag about my results of teaching someone else, because I'd like to be able to know that I did my job good enough to get someone through and let them enjoy and meet the people that I've got to meet. I mean, several of us have been all over the place and met tons and tons of fantastic people. It's a pretty good life if you could survive the fact that it's not a rich man's life, but it's a good life.
All right. Thanks a lot, Bruce.
Thank you. It's great.